Today here at Crafting with Brandy, we're going to make the cotton fabric pleated face mask with a filter pocket. It looks like this, and it's really, really easy to make. It's got this filter pocket in the back that you can put your filter in. These are not by any means the N95 or anything like that, but they are a great, easy thing that you can use up your extra fabric and make. It's very simple, just a few short steps. So let's go figure out how to do that now. First thing I do is, normally on my mat here, I have it already pre-measured. I have like a little Sharpie mark of where I cut them all the time, but for the sake of this video, I went ahead and made them. So the measurement for these are 8 by 15. If you want to make them for smaller children, I usually say that the 8 by 15 size is good for anybody 10 and up. And then the 7 by 14 size is good for ages maybe 3 or 4 to 9 years old. And then there is a smaller size for more toddlers or smaller people with smaller faces. This is 6 by 13. I've only made a few of those. So I have the fabric lined up and it's doubled in half and pressed and ironed. I'm going to line this up. I'm going to cut off the selvage. You can kind of use the selvage because we're going to use a 5/8 inch seam allowance. So you can leave a little bit on there if you want to save yourself a little bit of fabric. You just have to make sure, because there's like little stitch holes here where they create it. You just need to make sure that when you stitch your stitch line that you're on the outside of that. So this stuff is in the seam allowance so that it gets cut off when we turn this inside out. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch on 3 sides. We're going to stitch up one side, down the other, like that, okay? And you're going to make like yourself a little pocket, and then we're going to turn it inside out. On this step, if you're doing a stack of them, it does not matter what your thread color is because it's going to be on the inside. So we're going to do a 5/8 inch seam allowance all the way around. And on the corners, I back stitch on the corner, rotate my needle, back stitch on the corner. That way it just makes sure that the corners are very secure so that they can't pop. All right, so now that you've done that, you're going to cut off your seam allowance. And yes, I didn't pin anything. Just when you're an avid sewer, you just kind of hold it in place because it's 100% cotton, and these pieces were originally folded on the bolt together. They tend to stay together very well. So if it was a slippery fabric, I'd be more inclined, like jersey or something like that, I would be more inclined to pin it, but I don't really pin anything anymore unless I have to, like if it's a curve. So now that we've trimmed it off, and if you have too much bulk in the corners, you can go ahead and cut the bulk off just so that you don't have those big corners. And then you just turn it inside out. And I put my fingers in there and I make sure that I didn't accidentally trim the seam too close in any location. If you happen to have a boning tool, this would be a good time to use it. This is like a boning tool. There's all different types. And I just poke the corners out a little bit like that. And I have this piece, and now we're gonna press it down. So I'm gonna start at the top, and the way I make sure that my seam doesn't have like that little, you don't want that little fold like this little like sandwich to happen. So I always just kind of roll down and push forward. We're just going to keep folding that crease out. I usually do this on my large ironing board. I usually do a large stack of these at one time, face masks, and then I just flip them all at one time, and then I go over and iron them, and just the assembly line, doing the same thing over and over makes it so much easier. All right, so then once you've pressed all your sides and it's nice and flat, then you're going to press in the ends. So I flip in anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to an inch flipped in, and just what would normally be in the seam allowance. So I guess that would be 5/8 of an inch. I just kind of eyeball it, make sure it looks nice and straight and that the two sides meet up, and press it down. So you're gonna go about 1/3 of the way down, about the 6-inch mark, and I'm gonna pull it down, okay, like that, and fold it in half to make a little pleat and put 2 pins in. If you pick up pins, like I have a million different types of pins, and you start to push it in and it gives you any resistance, don't pin it. Get a different pin, because it either means your pin's dull or that it's too thick for this type of fabric, okay? Then right above it, you're going to do another pleat. You're gonna pull down and pull that pleat down about the same length, but you want it to end right before the other pleat, okay? Just pull it down. This is real technical terms. And then pin it in place. So you've pinned 2 pleats in. Your 3rd pleat comes when you fold up, flip it over, fold up the bottom, and fold down the top. And I like the one with the seam in it to be underneath. Okay, so pin and pin with just a little bit over there. Okay, so do we see how that's made? Like a little sandwich? Like a little sandwich. So that is what the front of your mask looks like. Now you need to go get your elastic. You just want to make sure you have enough space on the top and the bottom to get your elastic in the sides. It's flat elastic, it's really soft and it lays flat behind your ear, and I make these 7 inches long. So 2 7-inch long, depending on the person. If I was making this for a man, I kind of judge about what they look like. I might do a little longer, and the kid ones I do 6 inches. It's always better to have too much than not enough, because you don't want it to pull on the back of your ears. So I'd rather have too much and then be able to knot it. So when we put this in the machine, your elastic is going to go here, and I don't pin it in place. I just put this little bit, about this much, in. And sometimes if I'm having a hard time getting it in, I will use these tweezers, and I will hold the very end so that I know about how far I'm putting it in, so that it can be pushed flush with the top. Okay, put it in the machine, and I'm going to stitch, back stitch, forward, through here, pulling pins as I go. And then when I get about here, I'm going to take this piece, slide it out, making sure that it is flat. You don't want it to be twisted. Making sure it's flat, and I'm going to stick it in there. And I'm going to make sure that it's at least this far in, about 1/2 inch, and I'm going to back stitch there. Then I'm going to do a 2nd stitch. It is not required to do the 2nd stitch. I started adding them because I was afraid that people would be pulling or yanking on these and it would pop loose. The 2nd stitch just ensures that the pleats are sewn down and nothing falls apart and pops open. Okay, so that's how we're going to do it. Then we're going to flip it over, and I prefer to do the other side from the back. And I put this in and double back stitch, go all the way through, slide this piece, making sure it's nice and flat, in, back stitch here, and then do a 2nd one. The reason I do it from the back is if I were to try and put it through my machine this direction, these tend to get flapped up out of the way. before you sew your second stitch, flip it over and make sure. See how I missed I barely got that pleat in there. Barely got that pleat. So the second one, that is the purpose of this, is to make sure everything is sealed in, just in case these tucked in just a little too far. And now you have a mask. That's what it looks like. Yeah. It's nice stretchy elastic bands. Nice, clean, appealing look to it. And you can even put vinyl on here. You can embroider it. You can personalize it if you want, or you can just pick a really fun fabric. And it's done. See, it's that easy. You put the face mask on like this, right? And then you just pull it open. Now you can put a nose guard in here if you want to kind of press it down over your face. People have put in nose guards. It would be really simple to add a nose guard just by opening up the flap and putting one in and stitching it in place. I have some that are adhesive. I use those in my clear face masks. That's a great thing to do. But I really hope that you enjoyed my video. If so, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also follow me on Facebook at Crafting with Brandy, on Twitter, on Instagram. I would love to hear your comments, so just click below and tell me what you thought of this quick and easy tutorial. Thanks so much, and I hope that you subscribe. Have a great day. Bye.